Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all of the player transactions that have been going on since we last recorded. Free agency and player signings are a big part of the news this time of year, and every team is working hard to fill all of their vacant roster spots. We also begin our team-by-team season previews this week, and this week we'll be focusing on the Pacific Division. Plus, one of us got a chance to rub elbows with two current NHL referees. We'll have all the details of all this and more coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 4, recorded on Thursday, September 7th, 2017. Pacific Division Preview.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name's Wayne. I'm here with Steve once again this week. How's it going today, Steve?
Going great, Wayne. How you doing? Good to be with you tonight.
It's great to be back. We're back on our weekly schedule. But actually this week we're recording one day late because I couldn't get out of work early enough to keep you from going way past your bedtime. So we decided to hold off one more day. And we're recording on Thursday night instead of our normal Wednesday night. But we're back anyway. We're ready to go for another season of weekly podcasts.
The weekly podcasts start now.
The weekly podcasts start now, and actually training camps really get started. They really start tomorrow. Almost every single team around the NHL has a rookie camp that starts tomorrow. Some teams it doesn't start till Saturday or Sunday, but I was looking through, and just about every team, particularly the ones that are playing in these preseason rookie tournaments, most of the teams are having their young players and rookies report to camp tomorrow. So here we go.
I'm really pumped, excited about this. With the season coming on, I feel my withdrawal leaving me quickly. And the off-season withdrawal is terrible sometimes, you know?
Yep. Yeah, we like to try to keep ourselves busy with vacations and family time and all that stuff during the summer to keep our mind off the fact that we don't have any hockey to watch. But that's all coming to an end very, very quickly. Just in a couple of weeks, we'll have preseason games starting up. And the regular season is less than a month away now. So
that's right.
So it's time to get going. And with that in mind, we're, not only are we going to be giving you some of the headlines that have happened since our last podcast this week, but we're going to get started on our team-by-team season previews. And because there's 31 teams and we want to talk a little bit about each team, we can't do it all in 1 week. It'd be like a 5-hour podcast if we did. So we're breaking it up, and we're doing one division each week starting tonight. And we're going to finish up in 4 weeks. And tonight we're going to take a look at the Pacific Division. So stay tuned for that. In addition to that, of course, we'll get you caught up around the headlines that have happened all around the league. And I've got a little bit of a story coming out of the USA Hockey Referee Seminar I attended, where we once again had a little chat session with two current NHL referees. Now, these aren't linesmen. These are referees, two guys that wear the armbands in the NHL. So we had an interesting Q&A session with those two guys and the local referees here in the area that I live in. So I'll have a little story about that at the end of the show.
Looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, but before we get into that, let's remind everybody that you can find our podcast just about anywhere that you can find podcasts. You can find us on iTunes, the Apple Podcast app. You can find us Stitcher. I believe we're on SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Player.fm, just about anywhere where you can find podcasts. We've pretty much distributed our show around to all of those places. So, but if you can't find us on a podcast and you can manually enter your RSS feed, you can enter that as well. There's a link to the RSS feed right in our show notes. You can also find it right on our website at thehockeynuts.com. So, and then of course, as far as supporting the show, we always encourage our listeners to support us in any way they can. We have ways of supporting us just simply by following, retweeting, commenting on any of the any of the stuff that we talk about on social media. Although I've been pretty quiet over the last month, particularly around Twitter, because there really hasn't been much going on. But I'll be getting going here as the season ramps up. So, yeah, anytime you see anything that you like, like, share, retweet, you know the drill with social media.
Yes.
Just get involved in that way. We appreciate all of that. Monetarily, there's a couple of good ways you can support our show. We have affiliate links right on our website. One is through Amazon.com. Another is through HockeyMonkey.com. Hockey Monkey, if you aren't familiar with them, they are a hockey equipment retailer that sells hockey equipment right online. And I actually buy a bunch of my gear through them only because where we live, there's really only one true hockey shop in our area. And unfortunately, they know it and they charge accordingly. So in order for me to get a decent price on hockey gear, anywhere from sticks to skates to shin pads, helmets, you name it, they have it all at Hockey Monkey. I have to order that stuff online, and even with the shipping costs, I end up paying less in the end than going to my local hockey shop here and paying the ransom that they want for some of the stuff that they sell. So, but we do have an affiliate link to the Hockey Nuts, or the HockeyMonkey.com. Right on our HockeyNuts.com website. Over on the right-hand side, you can click on that. Any purchase you make through Hockey Monkey will send a little bit of a kickback to us, but you won't pay any extra. And we have the same setup with Amazon.com, where you click on the link, and any purchases you make through Amazon, we get a little kickback, and you don't pay any extra for what you buy on Amazon. So we appreciate everyone who've used those links in the past, and we appreciate everyone who will use them in the future. Additionally, if you do have the iTunes app, we appreciate if you would subscribe to it, help us rate and review the show. If you have anything good or not so good to say about the show, obviously we want you to be nice to us, but but if you think we suck, then, well, first of all, you can unsubscribe if you don't like the show, but it won't hurt our feelings any. But yeah, we encourage all feedback, good and bad. Also, you can get at us directly. Probably the easiest way to get at us initially is through our Twitter handles. Mine is at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at sball504man. You can also email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and if we think your question and or content is relevant to the show, we will certainly add it to as a discussion point on future shows. So, and you can also find us. We actually stream the show live on YouTube for those that want to watch us there, watch us make the bacon per se, or as it were. We have all of that as well. So you can find us on our YouTube channel. The easiest way to get there is at hockeynuts.com/YouTube, and that'll take us right to the YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's start talking hockey. And some of the headlines that I've got this week, obviously the summer's winding down, and the rookie tournaments are starting up actually tomorrow as we record this. Friday the 8th is when most teams get their rookie training camps underway. And most teams are playing in tournaments, and we'll have details on all the tournaments and what teams are playing who. We'll also, we'll have the team-by-team season previews. This week we're focusing on the Pacific Division, and in the following weeks we'll hit the other divisions. We've had more signings and pro tryout contracts to talk about this week. And then, of course, we'll at the end, we'll get some details on the Fantasy Hockey League that we're going to be starting up that it will be associated with our show. So let's get started on transactions. How's that sound?
That sounds good, Wayne.
All right. So first things first, let's get up to date on all of the contracts, and I have to pull them up here, that have happened since, let's see, we last recorded on the 26th, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so we got to go back to the 26th, and there really hasn't been a whole lot. We've been, 9 days? Something like that?
Yep.
Did we talk about Matt Hendricks with the Winnipeg Jets on the 26th? I don't
believe we did, no.
Okay, Matt Hendricks, he signed a 1-year, $700,000 contract. That's a 35-plus contract, meaning he's 35 years or older. So just probably more of a depth signing for them. He's a left winger, 36 years old. Connor Brown, 23-year-old right winger, signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also on the 26th, he signed a 3-year deal worth $6.3 million. That's an annual cap hit of $2.1 million per year. That's a nice addition for them.
That is.
Right, Toronto is looking better and better every day.
Yeah,
they're
one of the teams good in the East.
Yeah,
they really are.
They're looking scary good, and I think most of the experts have them easily making the playoffs this year. So that's a little crazy. All right, the next one I'm going to skip. We're going to talk about Will Butcher a little bit later in the show. We'll skip that one for now. Next one I've got is Alexander Wennberg, 22-year-old center, signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Signed a 6-year deal worth $29.4 million total with a cap hit of $4.9 million per year. That's a big contract.
Yeah, that is a big contract. What do you think about that one, Wayne?
Well, obviously Columbus has him. We talked about in the last show where every team has their core of 5 or 6 players. This looks like one of those guys for them.
It does.
He had 59 points last year in 80 games, but he only had 13 goals. That's not a lot of goals for a forward, particularly a center.
Yeah.
Now, he may be more of a... I'm not as familiar with him as I am with some of the other players around, so I'm not sure if he's he could be like a Patrice Bergeron type player. I don't know.
Right.
He's fairly young, and I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to him at this point, but obviously we're going to have to because with a contract that big, he's going to be around for a while. So
yeah.
But he's only got a little over 100 points in his career. So
yeah, I think that's a lot of money to pay him. Be honest with you, but
he was a first round. He was first round draft pick, 14th overall. So
right.
I think there's a little money just for that status anyway.
Right. Remains to be seen. A lot of the pundits are saying Columbus is going to have another great year, and we'll see how that goes. They certainly have the talent on that team.
Yeah. So
it'll be interesting to see how things like this mesh and blend together with what's occurring. As far as the guys that got them where they were last year. I was not expecting them to pay Alexander Wennberg $5 million a year, but. No. Stranger things have happened. I saw where they put, the rookie defenseman that did so well last year. He was in the top 15. In fact, I think he was the 12th best defenseman in the NHL, according to NHL Tonight. So I don't know. Columbus is making headlines. They're making news, and they may know something we don't or are not aware of.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen how these guys do.
Yep. Well, they've actually had, by signing him, they've decided that he's going to be a big part of their team going forward. So, all right, let's move on to Thomas Vanek. This was an interesting contract. 33-year-old Thomas Vanek. He's been a free agent for quite a while. I was beginning to think he wasn't going to sign anywhere and might end up back in Europe, but no, he did sign. With the Vancouver Canucks on the 1st of September with a 1-year deal worth $2 million even. So that is a low-risk, high-reward type of contract in my mind for Vancouver. I mean, it's a team that's in a rebuilding mode. Let's make no mistake about that. They're not going to be winning a lot of hockey games anytime soon. And Vanek may be just a guy that's filling a roster spot for a season or maybe 2 if they decide to re-sign him another year until some of the prospects that they've got come up through the system.
Wayne, and doing these team-by-team previews, I mean, Vancouver needs all the help they can get.
Yep.
They're going to struggle this year. If you're a Vancouver fan, my heart goes out to you because they're not going to be that good. No. I don't think they're going to be that good this year.
But they're still going to sell every seat in that building, though, because it is Canada. So
They will. They will. That's the beauty of it. So you're right. But Thomas Vanek, to bring him in, they need help like that. And by golly, I hope he finds a home there. To be honest with you, and signs another contract.
Yeah, because if they're bringing him in at $2 million for a single season, if he can get back to his form where he was scoring, of course it's been quite a while since he's done it, but he was a former 40 goal scorer, multiple 40 goal scorers.
Right.
Yeah, he's got several years where he's 30 goals or more. So he was a good player for a long time, but it's been, his last 30-goal season was 2010, 2011. So it's been a while since he's produced at that level. But if he can just come back to the 60-point level, $2 million will be a steal for them.
It's the right team because they need offensive help. Let me tell you.
Yep.
It's a perfect spot for him. So let's hope it works out.
As long as he's not trying to win a cup anyway. All right. Next one. Anthony Duclair, 22-year-old forward, signed with Phoenix on the 3rd of September for a 1-year, $1.2 million contract. This has bridge contract written all over it.
Yeah.
Looked like they couldn't, they couldn't agree to something long-term, so they just kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit, as some teams tend to do. So gave him another shot at advancing his career anyway. So he's signed on for a 1-year, $1.2 million. That's a cheap contract for a 22-year-old, supposedly supposed to be a prospect.
Right.
3rd-round draft pick. But he could put up decent numbers.
That's right.
So, all right. Next one I got is Robbie Russo, 24-year-old defenseman, signed with the Red Wings, 2-year, $1.3 million, with an average cap hit of $650,000. So kind of a depth signing there. Tyler Wotherspoon, 24-year-old defenseman, signed with Calgary on the 5th of September, 1 year, $650,000. That's again another depth signing. Again, another Calgary signing. Sam Bennett. This was a pretty decent contract. 21-year-old center signed on the 6th, a 2-year, $3.9 million contract for an average cap hit of 1.95 per year. Seems to be a pretty good price for Calgary right there.
They did a good job. I think he's worth more than that.
Well, he was a 4th overall draft pick. So
right.
Obviously he hasn't developed. For 4th overall, his best output so far is 36 points. You probably expect more than that out of a guy that was drafted 4th overall. And that is probably reflected in the contract where it's only $1.9 million.
Right.
If he were developing like some of these other kids have and was probably at the 50, 60 point plateau, this would be another one of those monster contracts. But obviously they felt that he's not where he needs to be, so they signed him on to this shorter contract at lower money and basically they probably had the talk with him, say, hey, look, we're expecting more out of you, and if once you show it, then we relook at your deal in a couple of years, and we'll sign you to more if you're worth it. So that's where I see that one. Jacob Middleton, 21-year-old defenseman, signed on the 7th to an entry-level 3-year contract at the rookie maximum, $925,000 per year, totaling $2.775 million. Also signing the same terms, same contract. Dmitry Samorukov, 18-year-old defenseman, signed with Edmonton to his entry-level deal at the max rookie salary. One thing that's jumping out at me with these Edmonton, I'm seeing Peter Schiraldi making the same mistakes in Edmonton that he did in Boston. You watch, in about 3 or 4 years, Edmonton's going to have to start shedding all of this talent because they've put themselves so tight up against the cap that they can't keep the team together. That's essentially what happened in Boston.
Well, when you're paying Connor McDavid $100 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Draisaitl at $8.5 a year.
Yeah, they're spending some money.
And you're giving a 3rd-round pick. You're giving the 3rd-round pick, 84th overall, a rookie maximum salary? Really?
Yeah.
Usually the rookie maximum salary is reserved for, 1st-rounders, maybe early 2nd-rounders,
Yeah.
Giving a 3rd-round pick a rookie maximum salary. I don't know.
I hear you.
To me, I see Schiraldi making the same mistakes, and the fans in Boston are complaining about it because that Draisaitl deal has I guarantee you has thrown a monkey wrench into the Pasternak talks, because now Pasternak, because he put up almost as good a numbers as Draisaitl, and he put up better numbers in the goal department than Draisaitl, is asking for that kind of money from Boston, and he really shouldn't have got that from Edmonton. But
I hear you, Wayne. I agree with you.
So, Edmonton fans, I'm telling you, Schiraldi's heading down the same road he did with Boston. He's signing all these players to these nice, fancy, fat contracts, and it's going to bite him in the butt. And I think he did it in Boston thinking, okay, the cap will keep going up and up and up and up, and it leveled off. And then the Bruins were like, oh, crap. Now we're up against the cap, and we had to let go Johnny Boychuk, and we had to let go Dougie Hamilton, although he wanted to leave. But, they had to let a bunch of talent go that they couldn't hang on to. They had to let Sean Thornton go. They didn't want to let go of him. Not that he's talent, but he was a great, Boston guy anyway. But they had to let a bunch of guys go that they didn't want to, but they had to because they couldn't afford to pay him anymore. And then the team kind of, did what they did. And now they're kind of rebuilding since they got rid of Schiraldi. So I'm seeing the same thing happen in Edmonton. But that's all I got to say about that. All right. So that's all the ones that I saw, unless something else came up.
No, there's not been a lot of signings, Wayne, since the last time we were together.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Will Butcher signing for a little bit, or what I call the Jimmy Vesey 2.0. Because the circumstances are the same. Will Butcher was, a college guy, played his 4 years in college, and rather than signing with Colorado, who actually drafted him, all he had to do was wait a couple more months, and he'd be a free agent, and he'd be able to sign anywhere he wants. And I think Jimmy Vesey started a trend here. I think you're going to start seeing the higher, until they change the rules, you're going to start seeing, and they may change the rules with the next CBA. You're going to start seeing these high-end college players start to pull this stunt. If they don't like the team that signed or that drafted them, all they got to do is wait a couple months. They don't miss any more games. They just wait a couple months to sign their contract.
Right.
And they can sign with whoever they want. So, but anyway, defenseman Will Butcher agreed to a 2-year entry-level contract with the Devils on Sunday. It has an average annual value of, of course, the rookie maximum, $925. Butcher became a free agent after not signing with the Avalanche, who selected him in the 5th round of the 2013 NHL draft. Butcher reportedly also considered the Buffalo Sabres, Kings, and Golden Knights. Butcher won the Hobey Baker Award as the top player in the NCAA Division I men's hockey last season. He had 37 points, 37 points, which was 7 goals, 30 assists in 43 games for the University of Denver, and was a major part of them winning the NCAA National Championship last season. He has an elite-level brain and really good poise, Jim Montgomery, Butcher's coach at Denver, said last week. Every time he touches the puck, it's going to be a positive outcome because he makes great decisions. So that's the number one thing that stands out to me. He's improved as far as his gap control and with how he angles people and moves his feet to take away time and space. And another thing special about him is his transitional passing. Montgomery, who had a 12-year professional playing career, compared Butcher's style to former NHL defenseman Andrei Markov, who played 16 seasons and had 572 points, 990 regular season games. The AP reported that Butcher can make an additional $850,000 in bonuses. All is not lost for Colorado, though. The Avalanche on Thursday signed college free agent forward Alex Kerfoot, who was a finalist for the Hobey Baker Award that Butcher won. Kerfoot was selected by the Devils in the 5th round of the 2012 NHL draft. Devils, is basically a swap of players at this point between the Devils and the Avalanche.
Yeah,
This Butcher signing, I think Butcher is a guy that the Devils are looking to replace the defenseman that they lost in the Taylor Hall trade.
Right.
His name escapes me at the moment. But anyway.
I know who you're talking about. Adam Larson.
Yes, Larson.
Yeah.
Turned out
a very good deal for Edmonton.
Yeah. Well, it's essentially a good deal.
Edmonton benefited very much from that deal, and we didn't think so in the beginning, Wayne. You remember that?
Yep.
But that turned out Adam Larson is a very good player for them.
Yep, he's a very good defenseman, and that's what Edmonton needed at the time. They needed better defensemen. And, of course, the Devils needed help all around, but, it's hard to find a top-notch forward, and Taylor Hall is that, so they were able to fix that problem, but they created another by getting rid of Larson. But I think Will Butcher will fit in nicely there, so... New Jersey's quietly becoming a very dangerous team. They're probably not going to do much this year, but they've improved quite a bit this offseason with some of the moves they've made.
They've made some moves, and we'll see how they turn out.
Yep.
I'm anxious to see how they turn out. I don't like the Devils at all, but with, Brian Boyle, going there is that's a good move for them.
And his big question is if Hershier is going to make the team.
Right.
Everyone said at the draft, he'll be on the team right away. But now I saw some articles come out. The Devils are like, you know what? We're not going to really push him that hard.
Right.
So he may be one of those guys that they let him play his 9 games in the NHL and then send him back down to juniors.
Going to be interesting, Wayne.
So we'll see. So all right, well, yeah, as if the Metropolitan Division isn't tough enough.
Oh yeah, but I you know what I've been wrong a lot, but I could see New Jersey finishing dead last in the Metropolitan, but that's to come up in a couple of weeks. I don't think they're going to have a good team this year.
Yeah, I don't think this year is going to be
put together.
This year, I'm thinking 2, 3, 4 years down the road, they're going to be they're going to be a good team. So if they continue to improve the way they have, that's for sure. All right, next story: representatives for restricted free agent forward David Pasternak and Boston Bruins general manager Don Sweeney were expected to resume negotiations for a new contract on Friday. Bruins president Cam Neely told the Boston Herald. I feel confident we can get something done, Neely said. I think David has expressed that he loves it here and he wants to play here. We want him here as long as it makes sense for us. The Bruins made an offer of $6 million per season for 6 or 7 seasons earlier in the offseason, but Neely said there's been very little activity since then. Pasternak, who had 70 points in 75 games, including 34 goals, last season was by far the best of his 3 NHL years. The 25th overall pick in the 2014 draft, he had 123 points in 172 NHL games, all with the Bruins. His previous 2 seasons were 26 points and 27 points. And of course, I mentioned before, the Draisaitl contract is kind of throwing a monkey wrench in that thing. The Bruins pretty much know by now that they're not going to get David Pasternak for $6 million when you got Draisaitl signed for $8.5 million. So,
yeah.
So they've got to find that. They've got to find that middle ground anyway.
Yeah, it will be. I really believe it will be middle ground, Wayne. I don't think they're going to have to sign Pasternak to $8.5 million.
No, I'm thinking 7.5 is kind of a number I've got in my head for that.
Yeah.
Which I still think is an awful lot for a guy who's only had one season of success. But you're putting a lot. I mean, he's a great player, but you're putting a lot of money there in faith that he'll continue his production that he did last year. And I seem to remember at one point last year where he played a dozen or so games and had very little points at all.
Right.
He was very streaky last year.
Right.
He would go on a tear and do 20 points in 10 games and then he'd go 10 games and he'd get 1 or 2 points. So he's got to work that out too. So. But he is, as yet, unsigned, and all Bruins fans are on pins and needles right now waiting for this signing to happen. I expect it'll happen somewhere during training camp, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens right before the start of the regular season for him.
I think you're right. I think it's going to come right down to the last few days of the preseason, maybe.
They technically have till December to sign him. If he doesn't sign by December, I don't think he can play in the league at all this year. He'd have to go play somewhere else. So I think there's a hard deadline, but it's not till then. All right. Ottawa Senators defenseman Erik Karlsson is planning to make his 2017-18 season debut in October, but playing opening night is a long shot because he still hasn't skated since having surgery on 4 torn tendons in his left foot.
Right, which he had in Charlotte, remember?
Yep. Well, he played through the playoffs with the torn tendons, yeah.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he had the surgery in Charlotte. That's right.
The surgery was in Charlotte, at orthopedic doctor in Charlotte.
Yep. So looks like Karlsson won't be back right away.
Yeah. And
I'm sure they're gonna take their time with him.
Yeah.
You don't want to push him back too early and lose him for another season.
That's right.
As much as Ottawa's gonna need him, but it is what it is, I guess.
That's right.
All right. Florida Panthers players and their families and their pets will evacuate South Florida on Friday in anticipation of Hurricane Irma making landfall there this weekend, with some members of the organization staying behind to help with relief efforts. Panthers president Matthew Caldwell spent the past couple of days trying to make plans to get everyone who was in Sunrise, Florida for training camp and the now-canceled rookie tournament out before the storm hits. The plane is scheduled to leave Friday morning for Boston, carrying players Alexander Barkov, Jason Demers, Aaron Ekblad, Roberto Luongo, Derek McKenzie, Mike Matheson, James Reimer, Vincent Trocheck, and Radim Verbata, along with Brandon Perry, who was signed on a tryout. Rookies, coaching staff, trainers, members of the hockey operations, and everyone's family members and their pets. The Panthers charter service didn't begin until the preseason, so Caldwell had to scramble to arrange for a plane from Swift Air, part owned by Panthers owner Vinny Viola. The plane has a more cargo space than their normal aircraft to hold all the necessary hockey equipment and personal belongings. The Panthers chose Boston because of its proximity to their AHL affiliate in Springfield, Massachusetts, and will begin training camp there on September 23rd if they're unable to return to Sunrise. Caldwell estimates the cost to evacuate will be about $150,000. So man, Springfield, Mass. I've been through that town many, many times, and in terms of weather-wise and just all around, good-looking city or not, I think I'd rather be in Sunrise, but because I've actually been in both cities, and Sunrise looks a whole lot better than Springfield. I can assure you that.
Yeah, but maybe not after Hurricane Irma. Tell you,
that's true. That storm's a monster, and people in our area here, we live in the Carolinas, and people in our area are freaking out a little bit because it's forecast to come right up through our area too. It will be a weekend storm by the time it gets here, but it still could cause a mess here too.
Yes, it could. We will be talking about it next week for sure, Wayne.
Yep. But in the meantime, we're hoping everybody, wishing everybody good luck who live in the path of this storm, because it's a doozy.
That's right.
All right, Coach Paul Maurice and General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff each had his contract extended by the Jets. TSN reported on Wednesday they were scheduled to expire during the following this season. Terms of the extension were not disclosed. Maurice, whose 50 place replaced Claude Noel on January 12, 2014, and went 43-26 and 13 in his first full season to help the Jets make their only Stanley Cup playoff appearance since they relocated from Atlanta in 2011. He's 136, 112, and 33 as Jets coach, and 596, 569, and 101 with 99 ties in 20 NHL seasons with the Whalers, Hurricanes, Leafs, and the Jets. Maurice coached the Hurricanes to the Stanley Cup final in 2002, in which they lost to the Red Wings in 5 games. Cheveldayoff has been the Jets GM since 2011. Winnipeg is 216, 191, and 51 since he was hired. The Jets finished 40, 35, and 7 last season, just 7 points out of the playoff behind the Nashville Predators for that last wild card spot. So obviously they seem to be happy with what those two guys are doing. They're extended their contract, although not too thrilled because they only extended it 1 year. So
I think Paul Maurice has done a good job in Winnipeg, and remains to be seen if they make the playoffs or not. But that's what it's going to come down to.
It's not the most talented. Yeah, and it's not the most talented team. They just they've done pretty well with what they had. So
right.
All right. The rookie tournament scheduled for September 9th through 12th between the Panthers, Predators, Lightning, and Capitals at Germain Arena in Estero, Florida, has been canceled because of the expected impact of Irma. We encourage our fans, staff, and members of our community to prepare wisely and stay safe throughout the duration of this storm, Panthers President and CEO Matthew Caldwell said. Our strength as a community will guide us through the difficult times ahead. Predators announced Wednesday that they will host the Lightning for a 3-game rookie camp series at Ford Ice Center in Antioch, Tennessee. The first game will be played on Saturday, September 9th at 2 p.m., second on Sunday, September 10th at noon, and the third on Tuesday, September 12th at 11. All 3 games will be open to the public, and the Predators will collect $10 donations at the door to benefit Irma relief. And I think I had seen somewhere, too, that the other 2 teams, the Panthers and the Capitals, were going to be playing each other at a neutral site, too. I could be wrong on that, but, the rookie teams, they like to have games between other teams. Just as a way to get the players some, so that the coaching staff can see the players in actual game situations rather than just practice. So, all right, former Arizona Coyotes forward Shane Doan announced his retirement last Wednesday. That was a week ago Wednesday, not last night. Doan, who's 40, had been an unrestricted free agent The Coyotes had informed Doan on June 17th that they would not be re-signing him. Selected by the Winnipeg Jets with this number 7 pick of the 95 NHL draft, Doan had spent his entire 21-season NHL career with the Jets/Coyotes franchise, which moved to Arizona from Winnipeg in 96. Doan made the announcement in a letter to fans published in the Arizona Republic. Doan had 27 points in 74 games last season, which also was his 13th as the Coyotes captain. He played in 1,540 games and had 972 points. He's the Jets/Coyotes leader in all 4 categories of games, points, goals, and assists, by the way. He's also one of 9 players in NHL history to have played at least 21 seasons with the same franchise. 3 played more games with one organization than Doan did. Gordie Howe with 1,687 games. Nick Lidstrom with 1,584, and Alex Del Vecchio, 1,549. Consequently, all 3 of those players did it with their Red Wings.
Yep.
He's tied for 14th for most games played in NHL history. The Coyotes released a statement regarding Doan on his career. On behalf of the entire Arizona Coyotes organization, our fans and corporate partners, we would like to thank Shane for everything that he's done for our franchise over the past 21 years. Shane had an incredible career on the ice, and we're very proud of everything he's accomplished in the Coyotes uniform. He'll be remembered as one of the greatest captains in NHL history. Off the ice, Shane was a great ambassador for growing the game of hockey in Arizona, and his contributions to the community are immeasurable. Shane will be a Coyote for life. Thank you, Captain. Doan played in the NHL All-Star Game in 2004 and 2009, and in 2010 he won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, which is awarded to the player who exemplifies leadership on and off the ice and has made a significant humanitarian contribution to his community. So, question, Hall of Famer?
Shane Doan?
Yeah.
Don't know on that one.
I don't see that one. He will certainly have his number retired by the Coyotes.
He will have his number retired by the Arizona Coyotes. That's correct.
I don't think the numbers are there.
I think he's a great spokesman for the game, a great statesman for the NHL. I think he's all around good guy from everything I read and hear about him.
Yep.
People that have played with him, played against him, organizations that played against him, that kind of thing. But I don't know whether his numbers, his body of work, stacks up to making it into the NHL Hall of Fame, and maybe it does. But I don't know that you'd see him get in on the first ballot. He may have to wait a while to get in.
Yep.
But as far as everything I read, and I've never met Shane Doan, so I don't know. But everything I read and hear about him is very positive. As far as what he's done.
I've seen the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that always goes in your favor, you know.
Yep. Yeah. Because ultimately hockey writers are are putting you in the Hall of Fame. So
that's right.
So yeah, he's always been a good guy. That's everything I've heard. So I guess we'll see. Time will tell. We'll find out in about 5 to 10 years. All right, Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne will be honored by the Anaheim Ducks following their November 13th induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame prior to the game against the Florida Panthers at the Honda Center on November 19th. Paul and I are honored that the Ducks will host this special night at Honda Center, as Selanne said. I'm also very happy that several local charities will benefit from this event. We're looking forward to sharing this night with our fans. Kariya and Selanne will appear together on the Honda Center ice for the first time since they combined for 3 goals, 2 of them by Kariya, in the Ducks' 4-0 win against the Kings on March 4th, 2001. The duo totaled 783 points in just 308 games with Anaheim. Kariya and Selanne will appear together at Honda Center ice. Elected to the Hall of Fame in his 5th year of eligibility, Kariya was the first pick, number 4 overall in Anaheim franchise history at the 1993 NHL Draft. He was a 3-time finalist, 3-time first All-Star team selection, and finished his NHL career with 989 points in 989 games with the Ducks, Avalanche, Predators, and Blues. Selanne was selected in his first year of eligibility after he had 1,457 points in 1,451 games over 21 NHL seasons with the Ducks, Jets, Sharks, Avalanche. He scored 76 goals as a rookie with the Jets and won the Stanley Cup with the Ducks in 2007. Kariya and Selanne headlined the Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2017. Also, players Mark Recchi, Dave Andreychuk, Canadian women's ice hockey player Danielle Goyette and Boston Bruins owner Jeremy Jacobs and college hockey coach Claire Drake are also being inducted. So that should be an interesting night for them. It's good to see Paul Kariya is finally showing his face again.
Yeah.
He's been practically a complete recluse since he retired, having very little to do with the game. So glad to see he's finally coming around again.
Yeah. Of course, I'm happy to see Teemu Selanne win that. Of course, it didn't take long to put him in the Hall of Fame. So
no, he clearly had a longer career than Kariya. Kariya's career was cut short because of all the concussion issues that he had, and quite frankly, that's why he distanced himself from hockey for a while. He was still bitter over the NHL's refusal to take care of these players that are sustaining these hits, these high hits that were injuring these players. And now that the league is finally cracking down on these head contact type of hits, Kariya is kind of coming back to the game a little bit. He's still not, he's a very shy guy. He doesn't like being in the public eye, so that doesn't help either.
Right.
So, in a related Kariya story, the University of Maine Black Bears, where he played college hockey, is also having a reunion of the 1993 National Championship team. And that team is regarded as one of the greatest teams in college hockey history. That team went 42-1-2 that season, going all the way and winning the national championship.
Wow.
Kariya had 100 points in just 39 games that year, 25 goals, 75 assists in just 39 games. He didn't even play all the games. He actually left the team for a few games to go play in the World Junior Championship for Canada that season.
I did not know that.
So he missed 5 or 6 games, main games, because he was over there playing for Canada. So anyway, that team, the 92-93 team, is actually being inducted into the State of Maine Sports Hall of Fame. The whole entire team as a group is being inducted to the State of Maine Sports Hall of Fame tomorrow night or Friday night of this week. So he's going back to Orono. So people in that area are very excited to see him again because he really hasn't been back there, at least not publicly. He hasn't been back there since he left. I think he's gone back to visit certain individuals privately, but not making any public appearances or anything. But this will be his first public appearance in that team or in that area since he essentially left to go play in the NHL. So.
Right.
And there's an article in the Bangor Daily News about it. I've got a link to it in the show notes, but talks about how he's very excited to see Grant Stanbrook, who's at the time was Maine's assistant coach and the head recruiter for that program, and he's always said that Stanbrook was the reason that he decided to go to Maine. And
wow, that is very interesting.
Quite frankly, Stanbrook was the reason most of the great players that went there back in those days actually went there, because Stanbrook wasn't that kind of coach where the head coach of Maine at the time, Sean Walsh, was very fiery. He was very boisterous, very loud. I mean, so much so that you could hear him yelling at the refs over the crowd at the rink at times. He'd get right up on top of the dasher boards, right? Not behind the bench, where the coaches normally stand. He would get right up on the boards when he's trying to get a referee's attention to holler at him.
Oh, man.
Stanbrook was the very level-headed, calm, very quiet guy. But boy, what a hockey mind Stanbrook was.
Wow.
And because of that, he was the reason that a lot of the great players went to Maine, because they went to Maine to advance their career, to use Maine as a stepping stone to the next level. And Stanbrook was one of the best coaches at being able to develop players to get to that next level. And that is why Kariya ultimately chose Maine over anybody else. So
that's very interesting.
So he's excited to get back there. But that team had, a number of players that not only Paul Kariya went there, but 2 of his brothers and his sister all went to Maine. His 2 brothers, Steve and Marty Kariya, both played for the hockey team. And his sister, Noriko, played field hockey for UMaine. So the whole family ended up going there. Even though they're from Vancouver area, the family. So, but that team was so loaded. I mean, they had not only Paul Kariya was a freshman that year. They had a pair of twins, Peter and Chris Ferraro, who both played in the NHL for a time. Peter was a Rangers draft pick. Or was it Chris? No, I think it was Peter. Played in the Rangers organization for a while. They didn't have as long a career as Kariya did, but they did play. Garth Snow and Mike Dunham both had fairly long careers as goalies in the NHL. So they had 2 NHL caliber goalies on that team, not just one. I mean, it was just a loaded team. Denver's current head coach, Jim Montgomery, he was also on that team. The top scoring line that they had, you had Kariya with 100 points. You had Montgomery was the center of that line because Kariya was playing on the wing for that team. Montgomery was the center on that line. He got 95 points that year. And then the other guy, the right winger on that line, was a guy by the name of Cal Ingraham. He never played in the NHL because he was only about 5'4", just a little guy. But
wow.
But he was just a spark plug, and he ended up with 85 points that year. He led the nation that year in goals with 46. Most of them set up by Kariya himself.
That's something else.
So, but yeah, it was a very special team. I was going to school there at the time, so I got to see it firsthand. And I could go all day on some of the stories I've had some of the stuff I've seen with that team. But it was a fun time to go to school there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kariya will be honored at Maine this weekend for his contributions to that team.
Very good.
All right, the last story I've got before we get into team previews is the Toronto Maple Leafs are renaming the arena that they play in, the Air Canada Centre, will now be called as of, and I don't think I have it, I think in October, I think it changes. It will be renamed to Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't go into effect until July. So this last year, it will be Air Canada Centre, and then it will be Scotiabank Arena. And I guess from what I understand, people in Toronto are very upset about it.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of funny because every arena in the league has a corporate sponsor to it.
Right. But, it used to be the Scotiabank Saddle Dome in Calgary.
Yep.
It was. And now Ottawa took the name. It was the Scotiabank Arena in Ottawa, wasn't it?
I think it was. Yeah.
It's now the Canadian Tire Center, but Ottawa was Scotiabank. So here Toronto is going to become the Scotiabank Arena, and it's the third Canadian team to have the Scotiabank their home ice emblazoned with that.
Yep.
And I can understand that.
And I think ultimately the frustration with the Toronto fans is the fact that, Air Canada Centre, it's been known as the Air Canada Centre since the building opened, so nobody knows it as any other. And the fact that the word Canada is in the name, I think, is a very point of pride for the Toronto fans.
Right.
Even though it's a corporation, Air Canada is an airline company.
Right.
But the fact that the word Canada is in there, I think, is part of the pride that Toronto people feel towards their arena. So
that's right.
Maybe they should call it the Scotiabank Canada Centre. Just so that Canada still is in the name. Maybe that'll make the fans happy up there.
There you go.
So, and I read a related story on that. It was I can't remember who the writer was, but he talked about the Boston arena has actually had officially 33 different names in its lifetime.
Really?
Since the building was built. And the caveat with the story is, there was when the building was first built, it was known as the Shawmut Center, and then Fleet Bank bought Shawmut out. So then Fleet took the name, so then it was known as the Fleet Center for a number of years. And then Fleet got bought out by the Toronto Dominion Bank, which is, TD. TD, I can't remember what the name of it was. But for a while there, between the time it became the Fleet Center and then it was the TD Center or something. Now it's just called TD Garden. For a while there, it was TD something. Well, there was about a month window there where they were actually in between names. So what they did, to raise money for charity, is they actually had a contest where you could bid to have naming rights for a day for the arena. So there was a 1 month window there where the name officially changed every day for a month.
Oh man.
And one of the funny parts of the story was one of the guys who won the bid wanted to name it the Derek Jeter Center, but then they shot it down because you can't have a major arena in the city of Boston named after Derek Jeter, who plays for the Yankees, one of the most hated rivals of the Red Sox. So that name actually got shot down, and they used a different name. I can't remember what they ended up using that day, but it almost got named the Derek Jeter Center for a day. So officially the Boston Arena has had 33 different names. So it was just a story that made light of the whole naming the arena and how ridiculous it can get. So. Yeah. All right, that's all the stories I had around the NHL anyway, so unless you had anything else.
I did not. Wayne, that's a good segue into what we got to talk about next.
All right, so, what we got to talk about next is the team previews.
That's right.
What do we got going on here? I got to respond to a referee text here. Okay. One of my referees is going to be late tonight.
Oh, wow.
Huffner wanted me to let you know that he's on his way. He's going to be there in about 15 minutes. There, I should take care of that. All right, so let's talk about some hockey teams.
Yes, sir.
All right, so what we'll do as we go through all these teams, just to keep it straight and simple, is we will go through them in alphabetical order. So this week we are talking Pacific Division. So the first team that we need to talk about is the Anaheim Ducks.
The Anaheim Ducks.
Last season they went 46, 23, and 13, finished with 105 points, won the division. This was a very good team, and right off the bat that this team will continue to be a very good team.
Yes, they will.
Because they haven't made very many changes this season. All the core of this team is still going to be intact. They really haven't. The players that have come and gone have not really. They're not going to be huge impacts on the roster. New players coming in. They've got Dennis Rasmussen, Derek Grant, and Ryan Miller. The three teams that stand out to me. The players that have left are Shea Theodore, Jonathan Bernier, Nate Thompson, Clayton Stoner, and Ryan Garbutt. None of those are household names. Exception maybe would be Ryan Miller, and he's actually expected to be a backup there because they still have John Gibson.
That's right.
And I think the reason they picked up Ryan Miller is, John Gibson can at times have, streaks of inconsistency.
Right.
He'll play lights out for a while, and then he'll go several games where he's, he's not the same guy. So
right.
Maybe bringing on Ryan Miller as a veteran who might be able to help him out and try to, make his game a little bit more consistent. But, that's essentially the goaltending situation there.
An excellent move, Wayne. Don't you agree? I mean, Ryan Miller will shore up the backup slot there in Anaheim, and they need that. That can only help that team.
Yeah,
so,
and the recent past has proven that teams that go deep in the playoffs have two good goalies, not just one. So
that's right. Very good point.
But yeah, offensively, you still got the same guys. You got Raquel, you've got Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Cogliano, Kessler, Silverberg. Patrick Eaves is still around.
Right.
On defense, you got Hampus Lindholm, Cam Fowler, Josh Manson, Sammy Vatanen. I mean, the names are. Then if you're following that team, you're not going to see much difference with that team. And quite frankly, they got 105 points last year. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
They weren't in salary cap hell, so they didn't have to let go a whole bunch of really good players. But I just see more of the same for this team this season.
Right. I think arguably one of the three best defensive teams in the NHL.
Absolutely. Yep.
They are a powerhouse defense team, and with Ryan Miller coming in, it's going to be tough to score on them. I had a projected finish, Wayne, and I know we didn't, but I picked them to finish second in the division, and it's a very tough decision making them second. They may very well win that division again because of they're going to be a great team, and I could see them going to the Stanley Cup Finals. If they get on a roll, they could do it. So a possible cup contender.
Well, they could have done it last year. They just ran into a very hot Nashville team.
Nashville Predators. Yeah, that's right. I think if Getzlaf Kessler and Perry return to their ways of 2 years ago, watch out.
Yeah, Corey Perry had kind of a down year last year.
He did, and that's one of the things I think that really cost them. During the playoff, they one and done in the playoffs, right? They lost in the first round.
Yeah,
right?
they lost to Nashville, I think, in the second round.
Maybe it was
or was that the first round?
Yeah, and they didn't play well. So if Corey Perry returns to form and Kessler and Getzlaf, who struggled as well, Ryan.
No, it was a conference final. I'm sorry, it was a conference final. They lost to Nashville.
It was. They didn't play well
because they beat Edmonton in the second round, and I can't remember who their first round opponent was.
That's right, Wayne.
Yep.
But when they played Nashville, they just didn't play well, and to me, I thought they were going to go to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they just didn't play well, and so. Again, I don't think there's a lot of change to this team, and Randy Carlyle knows he's won the Stanley Cup with them. So you're looking at a team that is going to be one of the movers and shakers in the Western Conference. That's what I believe.
Yep. I think they will continue to be good. Basically, what I see is Corey Perry's got to get back to what he was. He doesn't have to get back to his 30-plus goals that he was gotten for years and years and years, but he's got to get better than the 50-some points. He's got to get at least back up to the 60, 65 points, especially for the amount of money they're paying him. So we'll if he can't, I think question is Corey Perry in decline or did he just have an off year? So that question will be answered this season. If he has another down year, then okay, we're probably looking at a guy who's in decline, and they're probably going to have to rethink his role going forward. We'll have to see what ultimately they do. Another question that I saw on NHL.com was whether or not John Gibson can stay consistent and healthy all at the same time. Right. Obviously, bringing in Ryan Miller is the insurance plan against that.
Right.
So.
Very good move.
But they did ultimately, they ended that nasty streak they had of 4 straight Game 7 losses at home. They did beat Edmonton at home in Game 7, so so they broke They broke that streak, but they ended up losing in the next round to Nashville right after that. So, but no, I think Anaheim fans are still going to see a very good team. Let's talk rookies for a little bit. The Hockey News has one rookie that they think will probably make the team, and that's Jacob Larson, defenseman. They think he is good enough to crack the lineup this year. They've got him pegged as the 7th defenseman there in Anaheim, and depending on how well he plays, may work his way up higher than that. But he's a 20-year-old, so Anaheim fans, that's a name that you'll want to keep an eye on. All the other prospects that they have, they don't expect to make the roster this season. So
Troy Terry, the Slayer of Canada.
Yes. Yep.
Watch out. He might need a year or two of seasoning, but he's also someone they're touting to watch.
He's one of their prospects, right?
Right.
So, but they're saying he's at least a couple years away. So, All right. Well, let's move on to the Arizona Coyotes, and they finished with a record of 30, 42, and 10. With only 70 points last year. They had a very rough year down there in Arizona. And the one thing that keeps cropping up into my mind in Arizona is their arena issues.
Right.
And I'm not exactly sure where we stand on that. I think we're all set for now. But there's still down the road, there's still a question mark as to what the future for this team is.
I can contribute a little bit on that, Wayne.
Sure.
The owner now is an outright owner. It is not a partnership.
That's right.
Andrew Borroway brought out all of the other owners, partial owners and co-owners. He is now the sole owner of that team and has undertaken the issue of getting the arena situation straightened out. It's my understanding that they are going to build a new arena. Of course, they're not going to stay at the
Gila River Arena.
Gila River. They're not going to stay there. And the deal fell through in Tempe at Arizona State.
Yep.
But they're going to build an arena somewhere in the greater Phoenix area. and apparently that's I don't know whether it's taxpayer dollars or sponsorship or however that's going to go, but
now is that going to be a shared arena with the basketball team that's there too?
I didn't get that understanding.
No, okay.
It could be, but you look what's happening in Detroit. The Detroit Pistons are leaving the Palace. Yep. They're moving into Little Caesars Arena, so you never know.
It only makes sense. I mean, why would you build two arenas that are roughly the same size in the same city? Financially, particularly if taxpayers are paying for it, it doesn't make sense. You should have if you have a basketball and a hockey team, you should have one arena, especially if it's paid for by taxpayer dollars. You should have one arena, and you can share an arena. There's not that many games in a season that they can't share an arena. I mean, here in the Carolina, the Hurricanes, there's no NBA team here, but you've got the NC State men's basketball, who draw even more fans than the Carolina Hurricanes do, quite frankly. They're sharing that arena with the college basketball team.
That's
and,
right.
Everybody gets along fine there. So the multi-purpose arena only makes sense, particularly when you're asking for public money to pay for it, as far as I'm concerned. So,
and it's what the Phoenix Suns play, the Crooked Stick Arena or something like that. I don't know why the Coyotes don't want to go there. I mean, and play there. But if they're going to build a new arena, then heck, they're going to build a new arena.
When they first moved there, they were playing in the same arena as the Suns, and then they moved out to their own place that way out. I guess it's out of town, which is part of the problem that they have. So, anyway, but arena issues aside, Arizona Coyotes, I'm still saying Phoenix Coyotes, are going to be a very young team. This is going to be a bumpy ride for them this year. So if you're a fan of that team, they're going to be an exciting team to watch because they have a lot of youth. But you're going to be a lot of growing pains there. I expect another rebuilding year for this team. I don't expect this team to be very good. I think they're going to be better than a 70-point team. That's how many points they got last year. But I don't think they're going to get in. They're not even going to. I don't think they're going to contend for a playoff spot this year at all.
I agree.
Even with the addition of Derek Stepan, Andy Rana, Nick Cousins, Nick Halmerson, which is a big get for them. They're going to be an improved team.
Right.
Because the players that they got coming in are better than the ones they lost. Really, they lost Mike Smith, Radim Verbata, Connor Murphy. Everybody else that they lost. I mean, they lost Anthony D'Angelo, Alex Burmistrov, and Peter Holland and Josh Juris. But they're this, and of course Shane Doan, of course, retired. So they got younger, which I didn't know they could get younger because they were already a young team to begin with. But they're even younger now. So that young core that they've got is going to be interesting to watch. And the GM there, John Chayka, does kind of like a Moneyball type of setup as far as how he runs his team.
Right.
Where he looks at his team very scientifically and uses statistics and analytics and that kind of stuff in ways to make his decision. One of the few GMs around the NHL that actually does that. So I'm always curious to see what that team does because they've a lot of the moves they've made have been kind of left a lot of people scratching their heads, but the way I see this team working has made a lot of sense. They've taken on a lot of these contracts of these, like for example, the what's his name in Detroit?
You talking about Pavel Datsyuk?
Pavel Datsyuk, yes. They took on Pavel Datsuk's contract, basically a player who's left the league, is no longer playing, but he still has a cap hit that someone has to absorb.
Right.
And they've made a few of these deals where they've taken on a salary like that, but in addition, in order to get to take on that salary, the Detroit Red Wings in this case, gave Arizona a draft pick or two in order to compensate them for taking on that. So they've loaded up on draft picks over the last several years, and they've drafted a lot of young players. So be interesting to see in 5 years how this team looks. I think this team will be down the road or going to be a very good team.
Yeah.
In terms of rookies and players coming in, the Hockey News has Clayton Keller and Dylan Strome as players that are currently prospects, but will be regular roster players this season.
Yep.
Everybody else that they have in their system, they have as pegged as a year or two or more down the road before they will make the team.
Right.
They did suffer a loss, though, that's going to be a problem for them. Who was it?
Radim Verbata?
No. I'm thinking of somebody else on another team. Oh, no, it is this team. Jacob Chikrin.
Oh, yeah. Chitrin?
He hurt himself in training. I remember seeing back in June, he was already at training. He sent out a tweet that showed him doing leap squats or whatever you want to call them. Basically, he went into a squat and he jumped, just a standing jump from the floor up onto a box that was probably 6 feet off the floor. I don't know if you saw that video clip.
Yep.
It was shortly after that the news came out. And that video didn't cause the injury, but it was shortly after that he came out that he suffered a knee injury, I think it was, in training, and is going to be out for months.
God.
So
I did not know that.
He was expected to be a top 4 defenseman on this team, and he'll be out for a while due to injuries during off-season training. So sounds like he was training a little bit too hard.
Yeah, it does. I picked them to finish 6th. I think they're going to be better than both Vegas and Vancouver.
I would agree with that. Yep.
And I just think that they have to have some of these younger guys step up. Everybody's talking about OEL and what a great defenseman he is, and he's an offensive defenseman. But people like Max Domi, Anthony Duclair, who we talked about earlier.
Yep.
One of those guys has to step up and score some goals.
Yep.
And
maybe that's why they brought in Stepan.
Right. To distribute it.
Good veteran setter to help him out.
Right.
Because right now they've got him Stepan and Domi and Duclair all kind of picked to be the top line for that team.
Right.
Followed by Clayton Keller, just Christian Dvorak, and Tobias Ryder. So those are your top 2 lines in Phoenix, as reported by the Hockey News anyway. All right. Well, let's move on to the Calgary Flames. Yep. This is another team that I think is going to be very good this year. Last season they finished with 94 points, 45, 33, and 4. Fairly certain they made the playoffs, didn't they, last year? Yeah.
They sure did.
And they got knocked out in the first round.
Anaheim.
Yep. A lot of good players on this team. You've got Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, Matthew Tkachuk, that's Keith Tkachuk's kid. You've got back on D, you've got Mark Giordano, Dougie Hamilton. Back in net, they turned over. This continues to be a story in Calgary. They keep turning over their entire goalie staff. For the second year in a row, they sent out 2 goalies and brought in 2 new ones.
Yeah.
So this year's your goalies in Calgary are going to be Mike Smith and Eddie Lack. Mike Smith, of course, came in from Phoenix, and Eddie Lack came in from Carolina. And Brian Elliott has since moved on. I believe he's in Philly now, right?
Who's that?
Brian Elliott?
He could be.
I think he signed with Philly. And then Chad Johnson, I'm not sure exactly where he signed, but he's gone. But they didn't really lose too many players, and they brought in, they really haven't made a lot of changes. They brought in Spencer Fu, Travis Hamonic, in addition to the 2 goalies. The goalies essentially were the headline getters in terms of the new players coming in.
Right.
And essentially the goalie situation, from what I read, is essentially all they're looking for right now from their goalies is just a couple guys who can cover the nets until the 2 prospects that they have. They've got 2 high-end goalie prospects that they are essentially the future for this team, but neither one is quite ready to take the reins just yet. John Gillies and Tyler Parsons are your 2 goalies in Calgary that are coming up through the ranks, but neither one is quite ready for the prime time yet. Although the closest one, from what I can tell, is Tyler Parsons.
From London, the London Knights.
The London Knights. So looks like those guys will probably, I don't know if Parsons still has 1 more year junior left in him, junior eligibility or not, but it looks like those 2 guys are going to get 1 more year of seasoning, and then they'll probably go with one of them next year.
And that is what I'm hearing is that they want to try and give them a year and then have one of those guys in net. But you're right, Wayne. That's the glaring weakness for this team is in net, is the goalie situation. Because, and Travis Hamonic he's a great defenseman. I watched him play with the Islanders for several seasons. They got a great, and this is another team that's a very good defensive team. So, Dougie Hamilton, Mark Giordano, TJ Brody.
Yep. Yeah, that top four is as good as anybody in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Giordano, Hamilton, Brody, Hamonic. I mean, man, I would trade those four guys for any four guys on my roster.
Oh, absolutely. So they got the good defense. And with Johnny Hockey and Chris Versteeg, who is a journeyman. He plays a year here, plays a year there, but he's a good player that they acquired. So I agree with you. I think this team is going to make the playoffs. I think this is going to be a good team. I picked them to finish third in the division.
And then if Sam Bennett can live up to his the potential that he had when he was drafted, he could be another really good player. So I think Calgary is going to make the playoffs again, but I think it's another one and done for them just because of the goalie situation. I don't see them advancing out of the first round.
Right.
But I do think they're good enough to make the playoffs. So
now I had a question. What do you think about Glenn Gullitson, their coach? You think he's, I don't know. It seems like Calgary needs a coach. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it, Wayne.
What do you think the issue is with him?
Do the players like playing for him? Is he the guy that can take them to beyond the first round in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yep. That I don't know. And if they run into Anaheim again in the first, they've never beaten Anaheim. No. And so I don't know.
And I don't think they can again. I think right now Anaheim's a better team than Calgary. So
yeah.
But I wouldn't blame the coach on that. I think it's just Anaheim, the players, the personnel they have on the ice is just a better team than Calgary right now. So I see Calgary as being good enough to make playoffs, but just not good enough to advance beyond that first round.
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite teams to watch, other than the Bruins, is the Edmonton Oilers.
Yep.
Last year, they went 47-26-9, finished with 103 points, made the playoffs for the first time last year since the year they played Carolina in the Stanley Cup Final. That was back in 2005-2006. Made the playoffs and actually advanced a round, and then ran into white hot Nashville team, and ended up bowing out in the second round. But I think this particular team, now of course players that they have coming in, they did bring in UC Jokinen, they brought in Ryan Strome, Brad Malone, Ty Ratty. Back on defense, Ryan Stanton, Keegan Lowe. Players that left were Jordan Eberle. Of course, they got Ryan Strome in return for Eberle. Benoit Pouliot, David Desharnais, Griffin Reinhart, Tyler Pitlick, and Jonas Gustafsson. I think the group overall, the players coming in, particularly in terms of playoff experience and playoff presence, I think the players they got coming in are a better group than the ones leaving. So I actually think in this case, Edmonton's going to be slightly improved. Right. Yeah, they did 103 points last year. They may get to 105, 106, but that's about as far as they take them. Still good enough to make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And I would not be surprised if the Edmonton Oilers win the division.
That's how I put it, that they were going to win the division. I agree 100%.
Yep.
I think something that nobody talks about, Wayne, you've got McDavid, Cam Talbot, who had a tremendous season for them.
Yep.
And
I think he's the real deal. I don't think that was a fluke. I think that's what you saw last season is what you're going to get from him going forward.
That's right. He played 73 games. He played more than any goalie in the NHL. But the thing that and you got Milan Lucic had a great year.
Yep.
If you think about the guys that played great for them, but is Todd McClellan. Todd McClellan knows how to win, and he knows how to get this team to win and get them deep in the playoffs. I see them as another team, the Anaheim and this team, as a team that could go far and even make a Stanley Cup appearance. It would not surprise me to see Edmonton go to the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
I really think they've got it together, and I think Connor McDavid is going to be barring injury, is going to be a force.
He's really. I think this year is the year. I wouldn't want to call it a breakout because he kind of did that last year by winning the Art Ross Trophy. But I think he's your odds-on favorite to win the Art Ross again this year. But I think he's going to separate himself from everybody else, I think, this year. Last year, he kind of, he won the Art Ross, but he didn't win it by much. He only won it by, a couple of points. This year, I think you're going to see him win the Art Ross by like 20 points. I think he's going to take that next level. And by the end of this season, we're all going to say, okay, we're not even going to be having the debate anymore. Who's the best player in the game, Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid? I think the answer is going to be clear by the end of the season that Connor McDavid is by far the best player in this game.
Yep, and I couldn't have said any better. I think that's exactly right. I think it's going to be this season.
I love watching that kid play. I got to tell you, I sure wish he was on the Bruins because he is so fun to watch. The speed and the way he can handle the puck at full speed is just mind blowing. And I'm really going to make a serious effort to try to see. Go to the game here in Carolina when Edmonton comes to town. I don't know when that is. I don't have that right in front of me, but I am going to. They come to Carolina once, and I'm going to make a serious effort to try to go see them play. I had an opportunity to do it last year because I remember I was off that night, and I'm like, oh, do I want to go? I can't remember the circumstances of why I didn't, but I ultimately at the last minute decided not to go, and I watched the game on TV. I'm going to try to really go because I want to see this kid play in person, to see that speed, see him fly around the ice. Obviously, if he's injured when they come to town, I probably won't go to the game, but that is one guy. See, I like to go to the games, and I like to see the stars of the game play in person, the best players, because it's so fun to watch. And I might just buy the cheap. Right now, while the team is still not very good and the attendance is down, you can get tickets real cheap to a Carolina Hurricanes game if you're willing to sit, up high. Less than $20 a ticket. You can get close to the game day if they're not close to selling out. So, and I just found it. They are March 20th. Oh, look at that, March 20th. My birthday's the 19th, so there's a birthday present for me right there.
That's a big birthday present.
Yeah. I'm going to go watch the Edmonton Oilers play Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday, March 20th.
There you go. I may have to join you, Wayne. You spoke so powerfully, passionately about that. I would love to see Connor McDavid play.
Yep, you got to.
You know something I thought about, and it doesn't change the subject very much. Edmonton had all these number one draft picks. Jordan Eberle, and I could be wrong, but some of them might have been number two. Nail Yakupov,
Taylor Hall,
Draisaitl. And now but they kept Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yep,
and he's a good player.
Yep,
he never really fell into the same class as. I mean, they depend on him. He's another great player for that team.
Yep,
and they really like him in Edmonton too.
Yep, they do.
So there's a lot of guys on that team, in addition to Connor McDavid, that it's going to make him fun to watch. And I think they'll be a good draw.
And all those high draft picks, they pretty much went forward on all those, which is even better because that makes them, that much more fun to watch. So, it's going to be a fun team to watch. And that's why I say there's a few teams that when they come to town, I really want to try to get to the game. One of them is Edmonton. Another one is Vegas. I want to see the novelty. It's all about the novelty of, hey, there's a new team in town. Let's go watch them. Even though they're not going to be very good, I still want to watch them. And of course, Bruins. But there's a handful of teams that when they come to town, I'm like, you know what? I'd like to watch that guy play in person.
Yeah,
and Edmonton right now is the top of the list for me, other than Boston, of course. But yeah, Edmonton Oilers fans should be pretty happy. They got a nice spanking new arena. They've got a great team. That team's going to be if they can keep it together. We talked about it earlier in the show. Schiraldi has got his hands full with all these big contracts now, trying to keep the Oilers from losing these guys due to salary cap hell. But if he can figure out how to make that work, that team's going to be very good for years to come.
Oh yeah. And listen, with a little luck, they could be the best in the West. I'm telling you.
Yep.
They've got this fella, Laurent Brossoit, that's going to be backing up Cam Talbot. I don't know how good this fella is, but they're going to need a good backup goalie.
Yeah, we didn't even really look at the Edmonton Oilers rookies yet, have we? So they've got Jesse Puljujarvi as a player to watch, but he actually played last year. He only played 28 games, but they're expecting him to play more of a full-time role. And then, of course, your backup goalie you just mentioned, Brassard, goaltender. They're expecting him to make the team this year as Cam Talbot's backup. Other than that, all their other prospects. Yamamoto is a kid to watch for the future, but he's still a couple years away because he's just a wee little guy. So
yeah, Spokane Chiefs.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, all the other prospects they have are not expected to make the team this year. All right, well, let's move on to the Kings. Kings finish. This is an interesting team. Kings finished 39-35-8 with 86 points. Missed the playoffs last year. They've been good for a bunch of years now, but have beginning to show signs of struggling. And I think a big part of their issues where they've kind of come back down to earth is they got themselves into salary cap issues and had to jettison some players. They ended up losing Ben Bishop. Of course, he was only there for the playoff run. Braden McNabb, Devin Setaguchi, and Matt Green all left. Coming in, they've got Oscar Fantenberg, Christian Folan, both defensemen, and Mike Camilleri rejoined. He used to be part of the Kings and ended up leaving and now has come back to join the Kings. So the core of the team is pretty much the same. You got Tanner Pearson, Anze Kopitar, Tyler Toffoli, Marian Gaborik, Jeff Carter, of course, Camilleri up on forward. Adrian Kempe, Nick Shore, Dustin Brown as your third line. Of course, they still got Drew Doughty, Jake Muzzin, Derek Forbert, and Alec Martinez are your top four defensemen. Of course, they got Jonathan Quick in net, who's one of the best goalies in the league. So I actually don't think this team is going to be very good this year, but I know you disagree with me. You think they get a pretty good shot.
I tell you, and I could be dead wrong.
It's just hard to peg what this team's going to do.
It is. They suffered heavily last year, though, with injuries. You got to say
the Quick injury really took them out of the picture.
Really hurt them.
Yeah.
Peter Budaj played out of his mind, but that really hurt him.
Yep.
And if you have
and by the time they picked up Ben Bishop, they were too far behind. They couldn't make up the ground. Yep.
So a healthy Quick. And then if you have Anze Kopitar step up, he had a terrible year.
That's true. That is true. If Kopitar comes back to the way he was and earns that ginormous contract he's got, what is he making, $10 million a year or something like that?
$10 million a year.
Yeah.
Yep, $10 million a year.
And he starts putting up $10 million a year numbers again. And, of course, you got Quick in net. You've got Drew Doughty, one of the best defensemen in the league. Yeah, I could see your case that this team, if the cards fall the right way for them.
Right.
That team could be dangerous.
That's right. And that's a very good point. Things got to fall in line for them.
Yep.
But if they do, the Kings can make the playoffs. Are they a Stanley Cup team? Gosh, you'd have to really stoke the fire.
There's too many other teams that are better than them. I don't think the Kings, if they make the playoffs, they might. I don't see them getting out of the first round. I really don't.
I agree. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contender. But I think they can make the playoffs and they can make a splash. I really do. And they got rid of Darryl Sutter and oh God, what's the guy's name? Dean Lombardi.
Yep.
So they obviously didn't like their performance. In the
front
top
office.
brackets. Yep. Yeah. Now with they got Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille coming in. To make changes and stuff, so you don't know there, but
there's a lot of unknowns with that part of it. Yeah,
but I could see the Kings doing something. I really could, and I took a look at them on paper, and again, things have to fall in line for them. They have to, certain things have to come to pass, and if they do, listen, if Jeff Carter has a season like he did last year, and you see Kopitar come back, watch out, they're a good team. They really are.
Yeah, they can make life hell, but then again, don't be surprised if you're a Kings fan that they finish in 6th, 7th, or 8th place. Well, they're not going to go that low. I don't see them going that low, but they could be 5th or 6th.
Yep,
in a in a conference where only 3 teams from the Pacific make the playoffs. They could end up 5th or 6th.
That's a very good point. Yep.
Because that Central Division is a monster.
It is.
Now, in terms of young players that the Kings fans can look forward to hearing about, Adrian Kempe, again, we mentioned him earlier, is expected to make the team. Michael Mersch, a left winger, is a big player. He's kind of may make the team. He's kind of right there on the bubble, whether or not he'll make the team. Johnny Brodzinski, right winger, is another player, 24-year-old out of the. He's been playing down in Ontario in the American Hockey League. They're saying that he'll either make the team or not this year, and it's boom or bust for him as well. So they don't have any top-end talent ready to jump on the roster this year, but there's a few guys there that may or not crack the lineup this year. So, all right, let's move on to San Jose. San Jose finished 46-29-7 last year, 99 points. They obviously made the playoffs last year. 2 years ago, they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Final and lost to Pittsburgh. Last year, they ended up getting knocked out in the first round, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They did not play well. I believe it was the first round they were beat.
I think they had to play Nashville in the first round. I
think they did. That's right. Nashville knocked them out. You're right.
So yeah, they just tough draw for them. I guess we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because they were a team that was expected, because they didn't really lose anybody from 2 years ago, the Stanley Cup Final team, into last year. They didn't lose anybody of huge importance anyway, but they just didn't perform as well. I don't know if they ran into. Of course, they were an aging team, so maybe that was a big factor. But
right.
As far as players leaving, obviously they lost Patrick Marleau. He signed as an unrestricted free agent with Toronto. Mirko Mueller, David Schlemko, and Michael Haley all left the team, and they really haven't added much to replace them. Radek Simic and Antoine Bibo, goaltender, are being listed as newcomers here, but they haven't really added anybody, and I think a lot of San Jose's issues, they couldn't re-sign Marleau to the money that Toronto was able to sign him for, just because they don't have cap space for him. So I think in this case, San Jose has taken a step back from where they were last year.
I agree.
In the regular season, anyway.
The loss of Patrick Marleau really hurts this team. I really believe that. Because he blended so well as a veteran with them. And, I mean, he always produced.
Yep.
So that hurts.
They still have Joe Pavelski. They still have Joe Thornton. But Marleau, again, like you said, was a pretty good offensive player. We still got Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, Joel Ward. I mean, some of the names that you've heard in the past, they're all still there. But Marleau's gone. They still got Brent Burns back on D, Mark-Edward Vlasic, who's one of the better stay-at-home guys in the league. Paul Martin, Justin Braun. I mean, they've still got some really good names on this team. I think this team's going to make the playoffs. But going on a deep Stanley Cup run, I think it's pretty much over for San Jose. Yeah, unfortunately. I'll be surprised.
I agree. You and I talked about it too. They've got a year at the most, and I just think that the age, the veteran age, it's just going to overtake them, and they're going to have to go through a rebuild.
Yep, I think 2 years ago was it. I just had the feeling back then that look, if they don't do it this year, they're not going to do it. I think the window is now closed for San Jose. Right. They are starting the downward slide, per se. So, as for rookies coming in, you can expect Danny O'Regan, center. Hockey News is expecting him to make the team this year. As for everybody else, they are still at least a year away. Josh Norris is a big time prospect for them, but they're saying they drafted him this year out of the National Development Program, so he's headed off to the NCAA. So he's going to be one of those guys, Josh Norris. If he has a big 4 years at Michigan, if he even stays that long, could be your next Jimmy Vesey type player.
Yeah. That'll be Jimmy Vesey 3.0.
Actually, it'll be more like 4 or 5 because he's going into his freshman year at Michigan. So, yeah, it's actually year 6. So that's Jimmy Vesey 6.0 right there. And then they also have Jeremy Roy. I don't know if it's Roy or Roy.
Yeah.
He is from Quebec, so it could be Roy.
It might be Raw. He's from Bienville, Boisbron, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League.
Yep. So he actually missed most of the season last year due to a knee injury, but they still have him high on their list as a top end prospect. So, all right, that's all I have for San Jose. Pretty short and sweet.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. They're may make the playoffs, but they're in a downward spiral.
All right. Let's talk, speaking of downward spiral, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, man.
Sorry, Vancouver fans, but we're going to... The Canucks have returned back down after many, many, many years of successful seasons, thanks almost exclusively to the Sedin twins. The Canucks have returned back to the way they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
As a bottom feeding team. Obviously the Canucks brass is not happy with it. They're not going to allow it to continue for years and years and years like they did in the 80s. They were a bad team for a long, long time back then.
Right.
And then, they made a few moves, got Marcus Naslund, got their hands on Mark Messier, and they became real good. And then somehow, Pavel Bure, they somehow ended up getting both Sedin twins when they were both ranked. I think they were ranked 1 and 2 in the scouting that year. They were the two best players in the draft, and they happened to be twin brothers. And they basically mortgaged all their picks in the future just to move up they already owned one of the top picks in the draft, and they basically made deals and ended up with the number 1 and number 3 overall pick, and made a deal with the team who had second overall so that team wouldn't choose one of the Sedins, and that allowed Vancouver to get both Sedins in their draft year, and they've pretty much stayed together all their life, and they've both been on this team. So, but they are both kind of in the twilight of their career, and they're not putting up the numbers that they used to. They're still a big part of the offense for this team, but it's a team that's not very good anyway. They finished 30, 43, and 9, 69 points last year, well out of the playoffs. 7th in the Pacific. You think they're going to go as late as 8th. I tend to agree with that, although it's going to be a dogfight between Vancouver and Vegas as to who's going to be the bottom team in this league.
That's right.
If you ask me.
Yep.
But they didn't make too many changes here. Players leaving were Ryan Miller, Lucas Spiza, Drew Shore, and Philip Larson. Players coming in, Alexander Bremistrov, Sam Gagne, Michael Delzato, Patrick Weircock, and Philip Holm. And then they also brought in Anders Nielsen to back up Jacob Markstrom in goal, because obviously Ryan Miller left. So, so they ended up, and I don't know how Vancouver did it, but I'm sure their fans are pretty mad about it still. They ended up having, for a while there, they had Schneider and Luongo as goalies in their organization, who were both, two top-end, or at least they were at one point, top-end starters in the NHL. They ended up with both of them, and now they've gotten to a point where they've got Jacob Markstrom and Anders Nielsen as the two goalies.
Yeah.
So I think the problems, one of the major problems with this team is with their goaltending. I don't think either one of those guys is going to be a star in this league anytime soon, but then again, people said that about Bobrovsky back in the day. So when he was with Philly and couldn't stop a beach ball, and now he's one of the best players in the game. So
that's right.
One of the best goalies anyway. But
hey, Wayne, I have one for you on this team.
Yeah.
They brought in another guy. They brought in Brock Besser from North Dakota. He lost at the playoff game, gets on a plane, goes to Vancouver, and plays the next day.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He had 4 goals in 9 NHL games. What do you think he's a bright spot for them?
Yeah, he could definitely make an impact. I know the Hockey News is picking him to make the team this year.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a part of their... That was weird. Just heard an explosion outside.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. I don't know what that was. That's what the dog's barking about. Anyway, he's definitely going to be a player to watch, Besser.
Right.
Because Hockey News has him pegged for the second line on this team behind the Sedins and Eriksson.
Right.
So he'll definitely be a player to watch. He's definitely a big part of their future. He's one of their rebuilding blocks. We'll put it that way.
That's right. No, he is. Yep. That's a very good way to say it.
He's currently ranked as the number 3 prospect, as listed by the Hockey News, behind Olli Juolevi, defenseman who just got drafted, and Elias Pettersson, who were both high-end draft picks in the last couple of years, neither one of which, both were 5th overall each of the last 2 years. But Hockey News doesn't have either one of those guys making the team this year. But Brock Besser, they say, is going to be on the team this year and will make an impact this year. But he is the only prospect that Vancouver has currently that they're expecting to make the team. So Juolevi and Patterson, they're expecting to go back to their respective junior leagues. So, that's a name that Vancouver fans can get excited about for sure, Besser. Yeah. All right, so look for Vancouver to struggle once again this season, and probably end up with a nice high draft pick in the next draft. Yeah. All right, last team we need to talk about tonight: the Vegas Golden Knights.
Right.
And last season they finished. They didn't.
They weren't around.
They weren't around last year. Brand new team. The expansion Vegas Golden Knights, and I can tell you, there are people around the league and around the hockey world that are very excited for this team. The attendance in this arena is going to be almost a sellout every single night, at least for the first season anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously Vegas is a vacation spot for people from around the world, so they're going to sell a lot of tickets just to people that are visiting from out of town. Never mind the people that are there. I actually have been seeing... a couple of different occasions, I've seen some Vegas Golden Knights swag at the local hockey rink that I'm referee and play at. Oh, really? Yeah, there's some people that have gone out. Now, obviously, their jerseys aren't available yet. Yeah. They seem to be dragging their feet with these new jerseys, by the way. They're not even available, I think, for another week or two. The new jerseys, like the new Adidas ones, not the old Reebok ones that you can still get. And the old Reebok ones you can get pretty cheap now, by the way. The league's practically giving them away. I saw a sale earlier. You could get a jersey that's blank, no name or number, for like $30. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Jerseys that they were selling for $200 are now $30. So, but anyway, but I've seen sweaters and T-shirts and stuff around the rink that say Vegas Golden Knights on them. So it's pretty neat to see. Yeah. But anyway, this team, to me, is probably going to finish. I think this is a dead last team in this division, and possibly dead last in the entire league. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is, as we were doing our analysis in the spring of the expansion draft and the players that they picked up, they did not draft the best players to make the best players available at the time to put on this upcoming season's roster. They didn't go in with that mindset. Right. They went in with the mindset, okay, well, teams are going to try to protect this guy and that guy through, side deals. So they took advantage of that. And they stocked up. Yeah, they got 30. I think they ended up with, they were only supposed to get 30 players. I think they ended up with like 34 or 36 players in the end. But what they also got was a whole bunch of extra draft picks out of the deal. So they ended up settling for weaker players in order to add extra draft picks and extra bodies into their system. So there's definitely no top-end talent on this team. There's mostly guys who would have been, for any other team, are going to be third-liners. But it's basically a team with 4 third lines, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Yep. So I expect this team to play a very defensive style because their strength is definitely at the defense and goalie positions. If there is a strength on this team, they're going to be there. It's going to be a team that's going to struggle to score goals. So preventing goals is going to be a huge focus for this team. But the bottom line is they built this team essentially to set themselves up for years 3, 4, 5, and forward. Right. So agreed. They've loaded up on draft picks. They're going to be picking high in the draft for the next several years. 3 years. Yeah, 3 years minimum. Yep. And then they're going to, they're going to start getting better. So after that time, once they fill their system full of prospects, I don't think any of the 3, I'm looking at their prospects, I don't think any of the 3 that they drafted this spring are going to make the team right away.
That's true. I read the same thing. They have a possibility with...
They drafted Cody Glass, they drafted Nick Suzuki, and Eric Brandstrom this year. And two of them, the first two I mentioned, are expected to make the team in 18-19, which is next year. And then Eric Brandstrom is not expected to make the team until the following year. But as far as prospects that they expect to make the team right out of the gate, Alex Tuck, Griffin Reinhart, and Brendan Leipsic are prospects. They're technically listed as prospects, and they expect them to make an impact on the team right away.
Right.
But as far as how this team is going to look, because a lot of people, this is the unknown team around the league, right? Because nobody played together on this team. So as far as who's a newcomer to this team, well, everybody's a newcomer,
right?
But the way the Hockey News has them listed is they've got David Perron, Vladim Shipachyov, and James Neal as your top line. And Shipachyov is a guy that comes over from the KHL, so nobody knows how he's going to perform because he's never played in the NHL before.
Right.
He's technically a rookie, but he won't be a Calder eligible rookie because they put on years ago. They put on a maximum age in order to be considered a rookie. And, the reason they did that was because when the Iron Curtain fell and all the Russian players who formerly were banned from coming over here to play could now freely come over here and play. And in like a 1 or 2 season period, we had a huge influx of Russian talent. So, guys like, Igor Larionov and Sergei Markov and Vladimir Krutov all came over. These were huge stars over in Russia. They all came over to the NHL, and they were all 29, 30, 31 years old when they came over. And it was shortly after that they changed the rules in the Calder Trophy because I think one of them, Markov, actually won the Calder Trophy as like a 30-year-old rookie.
Oh, yeah.
So they changed the rules on the Calder to say, okay, well, you can't be. I think the maximum age you can be is 26 and win the Calder. But Shipachyov will not be. I think he's 30 even, but very offensively gifted player. He was one of the best players in the KHL last year, but he's completely unknown to this league, and nobody knows how he's going to go. But they've got him pegged as the top line center for this team. William Kariya, Cody Aiken, Jonathan Marchessault is your second line. Teemu Pulkkinen, Eric Halla, Riley Smith is your third line. Alex Tuck, William Karlsson, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is your fourth line. Back on D, they've got listed Jason Garrison, Shea Theodore, Colin Miller, and Braden McNabb as your top four, followed by Nate Schmidt and Derek Engelland as your bottom two. Back in goal, they're obviously expecting Marc-Andre Fleury to start and be backed up by Calvin Pickard and Maxim Legacy. So, the defense core is definitely stronger here than the forwards.
Right.
And they've got a decent goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury. So.
Yep. You never know. Shipachyov has a good year, and he picks up the telephone and calls his buddy Ilya Kovalchuk. You don't know what's going to happen,
Yep.
They may draw. This is Las Vegas you're talking about.
Right.
You just don't know. People may want to come over from the Swedish Elite League or the Swiss League and come over and play because it's Las Vegas.
And you mentioned Kovalchuk. He almost came back over to the league this year. He wanted to come back this year, but New Jersey held his rights, and he basically made it clear he didn't want to come back and play for New Jersey.
Yeah.
And New Jersey tried to trade him, but from what I understand, they wanted way too much for him then, and they couldn't get a deal done, so Kovalchuk ended up going back to Russia for one more year. Yep. But next season, or this next coming off season, because of the way, due to his age and how long he's been gone and so on, the way the rules lay out is, in a nutshell, he can sign with any team he wants next summer.
Right.
He's a complete free agent then, and New Jersey gets nothing for him. So,
And the fact that Vegas is hey, they're not going to do well. They're going to attract people that want to come over. Hey, I can improve your team. You just don't know. They've set themselves up well, I think.
Yep.
And it's going to be very interesting to watch this team 2-3 years down the line. What happens to them?
I almost half expected Alexander Radulov to sign there, but he ended up going to Dallas. So
yeah, really.
So maybe Radulov wants to win rather than
go through the Rickers.
Yep. So anyway, there's a lot of NHL level talent on this team. So they're going to have a deep AHL roster because of the fact that they had to draft 30 players off of NHL rosters. And the way the expansion draft rules worked is they had to be basically regular NHL players. And of course, you can only dress 20 a night and carry 23 in your roster. So that means there's 7 to 10 NHL caliber players that are going to be playing in the minor leagues for this team. So unless they trade them. So, and they have traded a couple of the players to advance, and add extra draft picks. I mean, this team's loaded with draft picks in the future, and you're going to be filling the cupboard here pretty quickly. But for the next couple of years, this is going to be a pretty weak team, bottom line.
Good goaltending.
But they'll be fun to watch.
They will be. Good goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury, Calvin Pickard. They're going to have a good goaltending duo. You never know.
Yep. You're right.
They may win some games.
Never know. All right. So, as you see it, and I know you listed it, I really haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
How do you have the standings looking for this division at the end of the year?
All right. It really pained me in two areas. I picked it this way, okay? I picked it number 1, Edmonton, 2, Anaheim, 3, Calgary. I think all those teams going to make the playoffs.
All right, so far I agree 100% with you.
Then it gets into the unknown. San Jose, I picked 4. The LA Kings, I picked 5. Arizona, 6. Vancouver, 7. And the Vegas Golden Knights, 8.
Yep, I can agree with that too. I can't think of any reason to change that order. The only other one I would see is you had LA over San Jose or San Jose over LA?
San Jose over LA.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, if all the cards fall in place for LA, you could see those two teams flip-flop, but I really don't see any other changes other than that.
Right.
I think, too, Edmonton will win, although Edmonton, Anaheim, those two could flip. Calgary will definitely be a distant third to those two. Actually, I think Calgary, San Jose might flip
possibly
if certain cards fall into place. LA, I still feel that they're going to miss the playoffs either way. And then I think Arizona is going to be better than Vancouver. And Vegas could actually be better than Vancouver.
Yeah.
So
you could see Vancouver, and I hate to say this because I like the team. They could be the worst team in the NHL. But
I do agree with you that this division will only produce 3 playoff teams this year once it's all said and done. I think you'll see Anaheim, Calgary, Edmonton, and everybody else will be out.
Yep.
Because the
possibility of the Kings.
The Central is just too good. I think the Kings only get in the playoffs is if they get in as the 4th team. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, let's go on to the. I guess. Do I need to put in stone what I say so that at the end of the year everybody can make fun of me of how wrong I was?
Give it a shot, Wayne.
All right. I'm gonna put it in stone. I'm gonna commit one way or the other. All right. I'm gonna go. Edmonton 1, Anaheim 2, Calgary 3. I'm gonna say San Jose 4,
right?
Kings 5. I'm gonna say Arizona 6, Vegas 7, Vancouver 8. How's that?
It's almost
pretty close to what you have.
Very close.
Yeah,
very close.
All right, so it's on record. That's my prediction for that division. And I'm gonna say 3 teams out of the Pacific.
I think it's 3. Possibility of 4, and they'll fight like tooth and nail for that 4th spot.
I know for sure it won't be 5. That's for sure. There's too many good teams in the Central to have 5 coming from the Pacific.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our minor league hockey minute. And as of right now, the KHL is the only quote-unquote minor league, although they don't consider themselves a minor league. Everybody over here in North America does because, it really is. KHL is the only minor league currently playing, so I guess all our stories are going to come out of the KHL this week.
Yes,
and you've got a good one about Ilya Kovalchuk.
I do. I picked up the I got online and looked at the KHL, which my gosh, I enjoy reading that guy's articles, even though sometimes I wonder if his English, I'm not the greatest writer in the world myself.
I think it's translated Russian, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
That's why these articles sound a little weird to read.
Yeah. But anyways, it was great to get online and take a look at how things are going in St. Petersburg. You got to say, look, hey, Kunlun is having a great start. Mike Keenan has got that team off and running, and they're doing very well. Yep. But I picked an article separate from Kunlun this time, and it was titled "Ilya Kovalchuk Powers SKA to Victory." St. Petersburg, SKA St. Petersburg won 5-0 over Spartak Moscow. Ilya Kovalchuk made it 7 goals in 6 games as SKA stretched its winning start to 6 games in a row this season with an emphatic display at Spartak. So the St. Petersburg was the road team. The home team, buoyed by some promising form of its own, had hopes of springing a surprise for Ole Narek's team, but ended up outclassed by a powerful Petersburg display. The first period brought 2 goals and 2 points from Viktor Tikhonov. That's a name, Tikhonov. I'm trying to remember. But that name rings a bell somewhere.
I think it's his uncle, Viktor Tikhonov. His name was Viktor Tikhonov. Was the legendary head coach of the old Red Army team.
Okay, that's right.
And he was the coach of the Red Army, or the Russian national team, or the Soviet national team in the 1980 Olympics. Viktor Tikhonov.
That's right.
Yeah, he was the head coach.
Passed away last year, right?
I think he passed away. I can't remember when, but I believe that this Viktor Tikhonov is his nephew. I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's not his son. I think it's nephew.
Okay. Well, he scored 2 goals and had 2 points in the first period. He assisted on Patrick Heasley's opener, then made it 2-0 13 seconds before the Hooter. Hooter.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get some chicken wings when this is all over with. Kobe then scored twice in the middle frame, one on the power play and a second late in the session. SKA's dominance was complete. The shot count finished 42-19 in the visitors' favor, and there was still time for Dinaz Kafazulin to add a 5th in the final minute of play. Right now, SKA looks unstoppable, and that's literally what he put in the last paragraph of this. Right now, SKA looks unstoppable. So they have started off very, very well over there in Russia.
And you say that SKA is unstoppable, and it reminds me that the KHL is not built on parity like the NHL.
It's true.
It is a very I'd like to say it's kind of like the NBA, where you have a handful of teams at the very top of the league, where those teams are basically, in realistic sense, are the only teams that have a shot at winning the championship. Yeah. And everybody else is kind of also ran. It's kind of like the NBA, where there's a handful of teams at the top, and there's really no realistic chance for the rest of the teams to, take care of, those top end teams. And the KHL is built very much like that. There's a wide discrepancy between the money situation from one team to the next, and as evidenced by it, they contracted this year. They lost 2 or 3 teams. I think it's down to what, 20? How many teams? 24 teams now. They were at 20. They were at 27 last year.
Right.
So and all the 3 teams that they lost were essentially due to financial reasons.
That's right.
In that league, you've got teams that have 5,000 seat arenas, and you have other teams with 20,000 seat arenas. So, they're not playing on equal playing field, put it that way.
Right. In addition, from what and I'm not an expert, Wayne, as much an expert as you, but you got teams in areas where they really, I don't know whether you'd say they're high Muslim population, but they're in areas where hockey is not as fertile, maybe, as in other parts of Russia.
Yep.
For example, Boris Astana, but they've come on, and done very well, and they're being supported by the community. So, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but anyway, Well, speaking of Barry's Estanya, I've got a story on a gentleman who plays for them. A gentleman by the name of Nigel Dawes. And you may remember him because he played for the Rangers.
Yeah.
2006 through 2009. Played for the Coyotes, the Flames, the Thrashers, and the Canadiens as well. So he's has a fairly long, 212 games in the NHL. But anyway, he's been playing over in the KHL. I think we've talked about him before in the past. This is his 7th season in the KHL. Well, he is off to an unbelievable start this year. He has 8 goals in his first 6 games. Wow. And he had kind of an unforgettable night there a couple nights ago. And I'll go ahead and read the article. It says, at around 9 p.m. last night, there was every reason to envy the passionate home fans in Ufa attending Salavat Ulev's regular season game against Barry's Astana. They were witnessing one of hockey fans' most beloved scenarios, a stirring fight back by the home side, recovering from 2-0 down to claim a 3-2 lead. The go-ahead goal, an apparent game winner, had been struck with a little less than 10 minutes on the clock left to go. And the match had just entered the final minute. But Nigel Dawes and Barry's had clearly not read the script. Dawes scored his second of the night in a 6-on-4 with 56 seconds left in the game. And Martin St. Pierre made it 4-3 for Barry's. And then with only 8 seconds remaining in the game, Nigel Dawes scored another goal to give Barry's a 5-3 essentially win because there was only 8 seconds left in the game. Wow. So Barry's ended up scoring 3 goals in 46 seconds. The stadium was stunned. Even Salavat Ulev's new coach, the highly experienced specialist Erka Westerlund, appeared shell-shocked, saying, I just don't understand how that can happen in professional hockey. So basically, you got one team, he's down the home team is down 2-0. They comes roaring back, take a 3-2 lead with less than 10 minutes to go in the game. And then in the last minute and a half, essentially, the visiting team scores 3 goals in 46 seconds and win the game 5-3.
Unbelievable.
What a wild game.
God, that would be a wild game.
So Nigel Dawes had a hat trick in that game, and there's a big long article on the KHL website about how he has now more hat tricks than any other player in that league.
Wow.
Of course, the league's only 10 years old officially, but
yeah. Well, he had a great year last year, Wayne. You remember us reporting on him, too. He played really well last year.
Yeah, he had 62 points in 59 games last year, scored 36 goals, which is actually a pretty decent season in that league. So, but he's off to a good start. He's got 8 goals in 6 games. He's got a total of 11 points in his first 6 games so far this year. And he's probably a big part of the reason why Barry's Astana is off to the start that they are. So, well, good. So that takes care of our minor league hockey minute, and hopefully, as the season gets ramped up, we will be able to talk about other leagues and other players.
Yes.
But yeah, I was looking at. There's this one site I go to at hockeydb.com. If you go to hockeydb.com/scoreboard, it actually gives you a daily. It's called the Morning Report. It gives you a daily rundown of every major league around the hockey world, and the only one that's currently playing is Continental Hockey League, and then there's a Central Canada Hockey League, which I believe is a junior league, like a lower level junior league. That league has started up already, but everything else, every other league says, okay, starting season soon, starting October 28th, starting September 15th, starting, all the other leagues are starting soon, essentially. They're not playing yet. So, but at least we do have something to talk about in the KHL.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm excited about it. And, Wayne, I got to give you credit for getting us into that KHL frame. I watch, keep tabs on that. It's fun to watch and talk about. It really is.
Sure is.
The second best league in the world, wouldn't you say?
Probably. Yeah, I would go that far. But they're still very distant second to the NHL.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our picks of the week. And you had one about Tuukka Rask.
You've got a really good one, and I want to hear it. So let me get mine out of the way.
All right.
Because I want to hear what you have to say, Wayne, about the officials.
Yeah.
But I got a pick of the week that's going to warm your heart, Wayne, and the Boston fans out there. I saw this, and as soon as I saw it, I didn't even have to look any further. I was like, that's my pick of the week. And I watched the goal. I watched the field goal and everything, but I'm talking about Tuukka Rask's 40-yard field goal at the practice facility for the New England Patriots, and he made it on August the 31st, a week ago today, right before the last preseason game that the Patriots played against the New York Giants. And the article was entitled, Rask Drills 40-yard field goal at Patriots practice. When an NFL team inevitably runs into kicker problems this season, some enterprising general manager may want to give Boston Bruins goaltender Tuukka Rask a call. While the Bruins were visiting the New England Patriots at practice Tuesday, Rask kicked the ball off a tee from 40 yards out right through the uprights. And I saw the video.
Yep.
I mean, it's a split shot.
It was dead center.
Yep. It was a beautiful kick.
And
it really was.
He could have gone from probably 50 because he didn't barely make it over the bar. He made it quite a ways. Yep.
Kicked it very well.
Yep.
Rask completed the highlight with the appropriate celebration. He even looked like he made a friend in Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski.
Gronk is everybody's friend.
He had his camera out taking pictures and everything. Rask and Torrey Krug were among the group that made the trip to meet Coach Bill Belichick and the rest of the Patriots ahead of their last preseason game against the New York Giants on Thursday, August 31st. But I was very, very impressed with that kicking ability, and he did not use a holder. He kicked it off the tee, but I couldn't do that with 500 footballs.
Yeah, it shows he probably has some soccer in his past. We'll put it that way.
Absolutely. Had to kick it that well.
Yep.
So Tuukka Rask is my pick of the week.
Yep, and I saw the video. It was an impressive kick. Not bad for an NHL player.
That's right.
There's some NFL kickers that have missed shorter field goals than that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my pick of the week is actually kind of something that happened with me locally. We had last weekend. We had our annual USA Hockey referee seminar / clinic, whatever you want to call it. And the seminar, I'm a level 3 referee, so I'm, a little bit more advanced than the brand new referees. I've been doing it for years, so, I should be up there in the ranks. But each year for the past 3 or 4 years, and it sounds like for every year going forward, we have 2 NHL referees that live in the area. And I think it's because I think the NHL puts officials in every NHL city so that, every city has, in a pinch, weather-wise, who knows why, it's always good to have a couple of NHL officials in your city. Well, the 2 that live here are Francois St. Laurent and Frederic Lecuyer. It's hard to say his name. Of course, we refer to him, or at least the guys at the clinic just refer to him as Frankie and Freddie. And they came to talk to us again this year. They came to us last year. And they came to us this year. Basically, what they do is they come in the room, they get introduced for the people that haven't been to the level 3 clinic before, and they bring them to the front of the room, and then they just start answering questions. They want to open up the questions to all the things. Well, last year, a big part of the discussion was how Francois St. Laurent handled a situation where he got caught on camera, apparently, or what the press thought, was laughing at Paul Maurice's outburst because he had just thrown Paul Maurice out for arguing, a penalty call, and then right after throwing him out, St. Laurent's laughing on, gets caught laughing on camera, and the press took it as, he was laughing at, Paul Maurice being, angry and whatnot. Well, as it turned out, it was Dustin Byfuglien had cracked a joke to him as he skated by, and Byfuglien skates by, and he's laughing at the joke, right?
Yeah, and I remember that. Yeah.
So that was a big topic of the conversation last year. Among you had your standard, what's the day-to-day life of being an NHL official? They talk about how the hardest part about being an NHL official is the travel because they move them around. Even though they live here, they don't get to referee all the Carolina Hurricanes games. They move around, they move them, they can be in they go out on the West Coast road trip just like the NHL teams do. They send them out west a couple of times a year where they do, San Jose one night, LA the next, Phoenix the next, they do that kind of stuff. So those guys are traveling all around. And And, they say the hardest part of being a referee is the travel and being away from family and so on and so on. Well, of course, these two guys are both native of the province of Quebec, in case you couldn't tell from their names. And but this year, the big topic that basically carried the discussion was this time Freddie Lecuyer screwed up in a game, and I don't know if you remember it, but back in January, in a game between Columbus and Nashville, Lecuyer got caught with his mic live, basically yelling at one of the players, probably the player or the captain that he was just talking to over. He had just called a penalty, and there was a discussion. Of course, NHL players always argue when they get called for a penalty. Well, the mic was on when Lecuyer yells over to a player who's off camera. You can't tell who he's yelling at. F you, F you. That got caught on mic, and that, of course, that mic is played throughout the arena and the television audience. And he didn't say F you. He said the actual word, right? So, yeah, that was the big discussion was, okay, what was the fallout from that? What did the league do? And, so on. And he wasn't really specific on exactly what the fallout was, but, in a nutshell, it was basically, you got to be careful when you turn on the mic or not. You got to pay a little bit more attention to that. When you turn on the mic, because they turn on the mics themselves. They got a little button. It's on a little remote on their belt, and they can turn it on and off from the belt. Well, in this case, he had turned the mic on. Someone yelled something at him from the side. He turns and yells, F you, right? Forgetting that the mic was already turned on. And then right after he yells, F you, he turns to the camera and he's like, 2 minutes. Hooking or whatever they call, and then he skates off. And I'm sure he's thinking, right after he does, like, oh crap, did that just go?
It went viral, so to speak.
Yeah, and it actually did go viral because every sports organization picked up on it, and yeah, it was an interesting. He said it was a good lesson learned, I think is how he said it. It was kind of funny. But of course, St. Laurent doesn't play here locally, but Lecuyer plays in one of the local beer leagues. He plays over at one of the Raleigh rinks over there. Mm-hmm. So recreationally he plays when he's not reffing. He still likes to play, so he plays in one of the leagues over there. And he said guys in that league were giving him crap all season long about that.
Oh, I bet you.
Of course, he's there as a player, and he said, he said the refs were really having fun with that. He said, I had the refs yelling F you to me all for a couple of weeks in the beer league. So, yeah. So the guys who play in that league that he plays in have been having a lot of fun with him on that one. But anyway, yeah, they both talked about, each one detailed their path up through the ranks, and both agreed that a lot of times being in the right place at the right time is a big factor at who gets picked to advance up the levels and who doesn't. Obviously, you got to have the skating ability. You got to be in shape, and because these guys are in terrific shape. I mean, it's amazing. They're both well over 6 feet tall. They're both in very good shape. If you wouldn't know it, they look like they're in about the same shape as a player. I mean, they're both really good shape. So, and they both agreed that is a must in today's game. That even though that they use a 4-man system and the two referees don't have to skate end to end like they used to, they only skate half the length of the ice. They still have to be very nimble to try to stay out of the way of the players. And they get a lot of questions every year on what do we need to do to advance up to where you are, and St. Laurent's climb up the ladder, so to speak, has been much shorter than Lecuyer. Lecuyer got started in refereeing, I think they said 4 years ahead of St. Laurent, but St. Laurent advanced faster just because of where St. Laurent was, and Lecuyer had to work his way up through the minor leagues and go up through, whereas St. Laurent worked his way up through Canadian juniors, which is a quicker path to the NHL. So St. Laurent got there sooner than Lecuyer, and St. Laurent actually worked his first playoff games last year in his career. L'Écuyer's yet to work any playoff games in the NHL, but St. Laurent has. And I can't remember what series I saw him do games in, but he did work some playoff games last year in the first round. I don't think he made it because they go through the same process that NHL teams do. Is they start with it's 33 referees, 33 full-time NHL, 33 referees, 33 linesmen that have full-time jobs with the NHL. And then, with injuries and schedule issues and all that, they'll bring up AHL guys to do games here and there to fill in the gaps when they need to. But in terms of who's employed by the league, 33 referees, 33 linesmen, and then certain number get picked to work playoff games, and then even fewer get to do second round, and even fewer get to do third round. Finally, by the time you get to the Stanley Cup final, I think there was only 4 referees and 4 linesmen selected to do the Stanley Cup final, and they rotated them around through the games. That's why you saw the same referees and linesmen throughout the whole Stanley Cup final. Those are the 4. Those are the group that made it through all the way. So they go through a selection process and get eliminated just like teams do. Well, St. Laurent did first round games, but he didn't get out of the first round. So, but that was a breakthrough for him. He hadn't done playoff games before this past season, so that was good to see a local guy. Anyway, even though he's not native to the area, they're both native of the province of Quebec, but they both live here in the area, and it's good to see a guy like him, finally advance to the playoffs. So, all in all, it's an interesting experience. You get to you get to rub elbows with a couple of NHL guys.
Yeah.
For a short time, and it was a lot of fun, and they tell a lot of jokes and a lot of inside jokes that only referees would know. But it's a lot of fun to get those guys in there, and it's always appreciative that our leadership group, the guys who lead the group of referees in our area, have those connections to get those guys to come in. So. And they put us up in the PNC Arena too. We have our clinic right there in one of the I don't want to call it boardroom, but one of the bigger lounges up on the 200 level is where we have our clinic. Or I guess a ballroom is probably a better way to describe it. One of the ballrooms that are there, and that's where the clinic is. And then our level 3 we don't skate, but the level 1s and 2s do, because they level 1s and 2s, a big part of the clinic is positioning. Level 3s, they figure we all know where to be, so we don't need to skate. But the level 1s and 2s get to skate right there at PNC Arena. So they get to go out on the NHL ice to do their on-ice stuff. And I'll be going back again for that here in a couple of weeks because my son's a level 1. So, but those guys don't get the NHL guys, the level 1s and 2s. They get to skate on the NHL ice, but they don't get to rub elbows with the NHL officials.
That's really good.
That's my story.
That was great. That was a very good night.
All right. So let's close out the show. Again, we're going to tentatively schedule next Wednesday, which would be what's next Wednesday?
13th.
The 13th, as week 2 of our 4-week team preview. We're going to be looking at the Central Division next week.
Central Division next week.
So only 7 teams to talk about that in next week. That's the smallest division in the league now. But there's some good ones in that division. So you've got Chicago and St. Louis and Nashville. I mean, there's some Dallas. There's some good teams in that division. So, but we'll be talking about all your Central Division teams next week, and then the following week we'll go into the Eastern Conference. But we're tentatively recording on Wednesday of next week. A lot of times it depends on my schedule. If I end up having to work till 7, that gets us done too late for you. So we may push it back to Thursday if I end up working till 7 on Wednesday. But I'll have to wait and see when the schedule comes out.
Yes, sir.
What we're going to do. But tentatively scheduled the 13th as recording. If you want to watch us live on the YouTubes. Otherwise, just wait until the next time we release. I'm probably not going to edit the podcast tonight. We're pushing 9 o'clock now, and I've got to be into work fairly early tomorrow. I think I'm going in at 6 or 7, so I'm probably going to put this thing away for tonight, and I'll edit it tomorrow night after work, and we'll put it out then. But anyway, other than that, I mean, we're going to talk Central Division next week. And then, of course, hopefully we'll have some news on the David Pasternak front.
I'm hoping that's a sign for you guys, and we can put that to rest.
It'll eventually happen.
Yep.
That's going to end one of two ways: either a signing or a trade. It can't end either way. So, or any other way. So hopefully it'll be the former.
Yeah, I think it will be, Wayne.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Boston's going to keep David Pasternak. I can't see why they would get rid of him. So.
Yep.
They need him.
Yeah, they do. Even with him, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs. But we'll talk about them when the time comes. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up. And until next week, we will talk to you later, Steve.
You have a good night, Wayne.
All right, you too. Okay, Hockey Nuts listeners, I promised at the beginning of the show that we were going to talk fantasy hockey, and of course Steve and I never got to that, so I'm adding this at the end of the show after Steve and I ended our Skype session to just let you guys know that we are still planning on doing a fantasy hockey league. We discussed a little bit about it. Steve is actually not going to participate or have his own team in the league, only because he's, he's new to fantasy hockey. He's never played before. So what I will probably have him do is on the team that I will be competing with, we will be setting up him as a co-owner or a secondary owner. So that way he'll have access to the league and he'll be able to kind of learn through what I do and then probably next year get a team of his own. But anyway, that aside, we are still looking to get owners. I've heard from about a half a dozen of the listeners who are interested in playing, and I know I haven't responded via email to any of them yet, but rest assured, if you have sent me an email to let me know that you are interested in playing, I do have your email, and I will be getting back to you. And actually, within the next week or two, I'm going to be getting all of the details together. One thing that Steve and I did discuss, though, he is going to help me in the administration of the league. Him and I are going to get together. Obviously, we need to determine fairly quickly, once we determine how many teams we're going to have and have owners for all the teams, is the next step is to get a draft order together. And since this is going to be essentially a new league or the rebirth of an old league, because we will have some owners from the previous league that I ran. We didn't do a league last year, but the year before we did. And we will have a couple of owners, or a few owners anyway, from that old league, because the league will be set up much the same way as that one. But anyway, Steve and I will be getting together probably to do a draft order selection, and what I'll end up doing. We discussed different ways of doing it, draw names out of a hat, so on and so on. I think I'm going to go a little bit fancier than that. I'm actually going to get myself a little plastic fish bowl. It can't be more than $2 or $3 at a Walmart, a little tiny fish bowl, and I'm going to buy however many ping pong balls that I need to do this. And we will use the ping pong ball in a bowl method as a way to select who drafts when. So once we get the details of that together, and we will do it, Steve and I will get together at a local restaurant, and we will do it there at the restaurant, and we will, if there's a Wi-Fi signal there, we will attempt to stream it live, but at the very least, it will be recorded and it will be put up on YouTube for all the world and most notably the league owners to see how the selection went as to who got when. Because obviously in a league like this with a guy like Connor McDavid at the top of the list, everybody is going to want that first overall pick to essentially win the Connor McDavid sweepstakes. Because I don't know about you, but if I had that top overall pick, I know that I'll probably be picking him. So we will have to determine, via some completely random method as to who picks when, and we are making plans now to make that happen live over YouTube, over on the Hockey Nuts YouTube channel, and then we'll get the results out to everybody. So
But going forward, again, if you're interested in playing, if you haven't already sent me an email, let me know. Send me an email, feedback@thehockeynuts.com. Let me know that you're interested in playing. The cost is going to be $50 for the season, and all the money that we get in is going straight into the prize pool minus the cost of the service. The cost of the service is about, I have until the 15th. We're using CBS Sports Line Commissioner's service, so we have about $100 to spend there. And then, of course, we're going to hold aside a little bit of money to maintain our league trophy. And, of course, I'll have the league trophy when we do get together to do the ping pong ball selection. So that way everybody will get to see the league trophy that we're all competing for. So anyway, if you're interested in playing the Fantasy Hockey League, I'm letting everybody know right ahead that it will be $50 for the season, and then we will get all the monies aside, and the winner of the league will take home most of the prize pool, and I think it amounts to $300 to $400, somewhere in that range. But anyway, get me your email, feedback@thehockeynuts.com. I'll get you on the list. Like I said, we've got half a dozen of you that have responded already. You don't need to re-respond. If you haven't heard from me, don't worry about it. I'll get back to you. I have your emails. I'll get back to everybody very shortly, and then we will go from there. So that's it on the fantasy hockey front, and I'll let you know as anything develops. Thanks.